Ethan Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Dynamics, a 53-year-old man who had spent his life building a technology empire worth hundreds of millions, walked slowly toward his gleaming black Mercedes. It was late at night, the parking lot deserted, the cold concrete floor lit only by harsh fluorescent lights. Just as he slid the key into the lock, a trembling, high-pitched voice rang out, "Shut up! Don't say a word!" Ethan froze, a chill running down his spine. The sound wasn't coming from outside, but from inside his car. Curled up in the back seat was a little black girl about 7 years old, her wide eyes shining with fear, but strangely also with determination. "Someone's listening," she whispered, pointing toward the office building still lit up. "Your partner. And his blonde wife. They just said your name. They said tonight you'd definitely be here." Ethan went rigid. In 18 years of working side by side with Leonard Hayes, his most trusted partner, he had never once doubted the man's loyalty. Nor with Olivia Grant, his executive assistant, who had been at his side for over a decade. "How did you get into my car?" he asked quietly, sliding into the driver's seat, forcing calm into his voice. The girl pressed her lips together. The janitor left the door open. "I hid inside, because I heard them say that tomorrow you'd have nothing left. They laughed, saying you were so stupid you'd sign papers without even reading them." Ethan's chest tightened. In that moment, a homeless child had risked everything to whisper the truth to him, and he knew from this second on his life would never be the same. The car rolled slowly out of the lot, headlights cutting through the night. Ethan gripped the wheel, his mind spinning with pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. The ragged child in the back seat had suddenly become the witness to a plot he had never imagined. "What's your name?" Ethan asked, his voice softer than the wind outside. "Amira." The girl replied, her gaze steady and unnervingly resolute. "I heard them say your name many times. Ethan Carter, the man who'll be thrown out of his own company." A bitter smile flickered across Ethan's face. For years, he had trusted Leonard like a brother. Olivia he had treated as his right hand, even family. Yet in a single night, that faith had been shaken to the core. Glancing into the rearview mirror, he saw Amira still huddled, her eyes fixed on the glowing building in the distance. "Why risk yourself to tell me this?" Amira hesitated for a moment, then spoke, her voice tight but firm. "Because I know what it feels like to be treated like trash. They talked about you like you weren't worth anything. The same way people once talked about me. My grandmother always said if you see someone being crushed and you can help, then you have to, because next time the one being trampled could be you." Ethan sat in silence. Her words weren't just a warning. They were a mirror held up to himself, a man too trusting, too gentle, and now dismissed as a fool. In that instant, between a millionaire CEO and a homeless child, an invisible bond was forged. Not built on money, but on truth, on a shared hunger for justice. And Ethan realized he had just gained an ally no one would ever expect. 20 minutes later, Ethan and Amira sat in a roadside diner. The place was quiet, filled only with the ticking of a clock and the faint smell of bitter coffee. Ethan ordered a cup, but barely touched it, while Amira devoured a hamburger like she hadn't eaten all day. Ethan's phone buzzed. "A message from Leonard ready for tomorrow, old friend. The Japanese will be fully convinced. You'll leave the game rich and glorious." A cold smile crossed Ethan's lips. He turned the screen toward Amira. She giggled softly. "He's lying straight to your face while pretending to celebrate." Another text arrived, this time from Olivia Ethan. "I've reviewed the entire contract. Everything's perfect. Just sign as always. Trust me." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Olivia," The woman who knew his entire life, his schedule, his accounts, even his private passwords. For years, he had entrusted her with everything, and now that very trust had become a knife against his throat. "You know," Amira said, wiping her hands on a napkin, "they think you're clueless. But really, don't you know plenty about them? Their secret meetings, shady money." Ethan stiffened. She was right. Over 18 years, he had glimpsed suspicious figures in reports, overheard half-hidden phone calls. He had ignored it, convinced that trust was the strongest foundation. But now those fragments aligned into a clear picture of betrayal. Setting down his coffee, Ethan's hand trembled slightly, but his eyes burned with a new resolve. This was no longer just about betrayal. It was time to prove that even a silent sheep could grow fangs. That night, Ethan barely slept. He sat in his vast living room, yellow light spilling over piles of files and glowing messages of treachery on his phone. On the sofa, Amira lay curled under a thin blanket, breathing unevenly in restless sleep. Ethan looked at her, a strange feeling rising inside him. This child hadn't only saved him from ruin. She had rekindled a clarity that blind trust had long obscured. Suddenly, a familiar name lit up his screen. Gabriel Ross, a former investigator once contracted by the company, a man Ethan still owed a debt of gratitude. A year ago, Leonard had abruptly fired him under the excuse of budget cuts. Ethan dialed. After a few rings, a deep, gravelly voice answered. "Ethan Carter, I never thought I'd hear from you again." "Gabriel," Ethan said slowly, "I need your help. And this time, it's not just business. It's life or death." 2 hours later, Gabriel arrived in Ethan's kitchen. Strong-built, sharp-eyed, carrying the weight of a seasoned ex-cop. Listening to Amira recount what she had overheard, he shook his head, half in disbelief, half in admiration. "This girl's got instincts. But Ethan, this isn't just betrayal. I always suspected Leonard and Olivia were tied to shady dealings. Now hearing this, I'm certain it's bigger money laundering, a full company takeover." Ethan clenched his fist. He had thought he was facing a personal betrayal, but the truth now revealed a far more dangerous crime. To fight it, he would need both Amira and Gabriel at his side. At the kitchen table, Gabriel opened a battered black briefcase and pulled out a tablet filled with documents. Numbers and charts lit the screen. "Ethan," he said firmly before Leonard forced me out, "I managed to save a few things. This isn't just betrayal. It's financial crime." Ethan held his breath as each page appeared phantom contracts, shell companies existing only on paper, millions shuffled between accounts. Gabriel pointed at a glaring red number. "In the past 2 years, Leonard and Olivia have siphoned at least $5 million from Carter Dynamics. They're using your company as a cover, planning to clean everything through tomorrow's Japanese deal. If you sign, every trace becomes legal, and once you're out, it's over." Ethan's blood boiled. He wasn't just about to lose his company. He was about to become the unwitting shield for a massive laundering scheme. Amira's eyes widened with a mix of awe and urgency. "They think you're stupid, but now you've got proof. You've got Gabriel, and you've got me." Gabriel gave the girl a faint smile. "That's right. But we need strategy. 2 options: call the cops now but risk them slipping through legal cracks. Or let them trap themselves right in front of investors and the authorities." Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. He had spent a lifetime believing in honesty, but now to reclaim everything he would have to turn their arrogance into the rope that hanged them. For the first time in months, his lips curved into a calculating smile. Morning light streamed through the windows, but no one in Ethan's house had thought of sleep. On the dining table lay a spread-out floor plan of Carter Dynamics' headquarters, stacks of documents, and Ethan's phone vibrating constantly with Leonard's and Olivia's deceitful messages. Gabriel tapped a pencil against the blueprint, his voice steady. "Tomorrow, they'll put you on the spot, forcing you to sign in front of the Japanese. They believe you'll cave. But at that very moment, we flip the board." Amira sat upright, her eyes sharp. "I can sneak near the meeting room and record more. If they talk like they did last night, mocking you, that will be evidence no one can deny." Ethan's heart tightened. "Amira, this is dangerous. You're only 7. She cut him off, gaze unwavering. "I've lived on the streets. I've heard worse things than this. I'm not afraid. What I fear is them taking everything from you." Gabriel interjected, nodding firmly. "I'll stay with her every second. She won't be alone." "You have my word." Ethan exhaled heavily, then rested a hand on Amira's small shoulder. "All right, but only if Gabriel is always beside you." The air thickened with tension, but beneath it rose a new energy: solidarity. They were no longer a CEO, an ex-cop, and a homeless child. They were an alliance, bound by justice, trust, and a single purpose: to overturn the scheme. Outside, dawn broke. Inside, Ethan clenched his fist. Tomorrow, Leonard and Olivia would sit on what they thought was a throne. But within minutes, that throne would become the gallows they never saw coming. At exactly 2 p.m., the 15th floor of Carter Dynamics blazed with light. Leonard and Olivia stood in the grand conference room, arranging documents with the meticulous precision of victors. On the table, contracts were neatly marked with yellow tabs, ready for the final signature. The doors opened. Ethan entered calm, wearing his usual polite smile. "Apologies for being a few minutes late," he said, his voice deep and unreadable. "No problem." Old friend Leonard strode over, embracing him like a brother. "The Japanese will arrive any moment. Everything's prepared. Today will be the greatest day of our lives." Olivia approached, leather case in hand, her eyes gentle yet icy. "Ethan, just sign where I've marked. Same as always. You can trust me completely." Ethan glanced briefly at the papers, nodding lightly. "Of course. I've always trusted you both." His tone was level, but his eyes slid over them like cold blades. At the end of the hall, Amira hid behind a curtain, phone recording every word. Gabriel stood close by, alert to every move. Leaning in, Leonard whispered smugly in Ethan's ear, "Tomorrow you'll retire in glory, and we'll rewrite the company's history." Ethan sat down, feigning relaxation, flipping through the contract. Outside, footsteps approached. The Japanese investors. He knew the moment of explosion was almost here. In his mind, only one thought remained. Let them tighten the noose they wove themselves. The conference doors opened, and 3 Japanese investors entered with calm poise. Leonard rushed to shake hands, brimming with enthusiasm. "We've prepared everything, gentlemen. Today marks the beginning of a new era." Olivia slid the contracts toward Ethan, her slender finger pointing at the yellow tabs. "Just sign here, here. And here. Simple." Silence thickened. Ethan twirled the pen slowly in his hand. Leonard and Olivia exchanged triumphant glances. But just as Ethan lowered the pen, his voice rang out low and cutting. "Before I sign, I'd like to share something interesting I discovered last night." The room froze. Leonard's brows knitted. Olivia swallowed hard. The doors burst open. Gabriel strode in, carrying a heavy file box, followed by 2 federal agents. Murmurs rippled through the room as the investors traded wary glances. "You all remember Gabriel, don't you?" Ethan's smile was faint. The man you fired under the pretense of budget cuts. But the truth is, he never stopped working. Only now, he works for the true owner of this company. Gabriel placed the files on the table and activated a projector. Data filled the screen, suspicious transfers, shell companies, fake contracts. The glaring figure of $5 million shone like a blade cutting through Leonard and Olivia's disguise. "What is this?" Leonard barked, sweat breaking across his forehead. Ethan folded his arms, voice calm. "This isn't my trick, Leonard. You wrote this script yourselves. I'm merely bringing it into the light." Out in the hallway, Amira's hands trembled as she held her phone higher, recording every second. She knew justice was moments away. The conference room was suffocating. Leonard sprang up, face red, voice snarling. "This is baseless conjecture. You think a few numbers and forged documents can slander us?" Olivia cut in, trying to sound composed, though her hands shook on her leather case. "Ethan, you misunderstand. Everything we've done has been for the company. Those figures can all be explained." Ethan leaned back, eyes like steel. "Explain then. Or perhaps, listen to this." Gabriel tapped his phone. Olivia's voice burst through the speakers, clear and undeniable. "Ethan is gullible, always signing without reading. By tomorrow he'll have nothing left. And we'll have it all." Leonard's voice followed, dripping with contempt. 18 years of fake friendship finally paid off. Watching his face when he's thrown out will be priceless. The Japanese investors stiffened. One said gravely, "We will not partner with frauds." Leonard stammered, scrambling to deny, when suddenly the rear doors opened. Amira walked in, escorted by a social worker. Her young eyes glowed with a determination far beyond her years. "Hello, Mr. Leonard," Amira said clearly. "Remember me. Last night I was under your desk. I heard you say with your own mouth that you'd steal Mr. Ethan's company." The room went silent. Leonard's jaw dropped, words failing him. Olivia paled, retreating toward the wall. Ethan looked down at Amira, pride swelling in his chest. A child once invisible now stood as the living witness to truth. The atmosphere was so heavy every ragged breath of Leonard and Olivia could be heard. Leonard's face burned with rage and despair, while Olivia's went pale, her eyes darting frantically for an escape. "You'd believe a street child," Leonard spat, his voice cracking. "We built this empire with you, Ethan." But Gabriel handed another set of documents to the federal agents. One flipped through and declared, "The evidence is sufficient. Leonard Hayes and Olivia Grant, you are under arrest for embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy to defraud." The metallic click of handcuffs echoed like a verdict. Olivia broke down, sobbing. "Ethan, I never wanted this. Leonard forced me." But Ethan only regarded her with icy silence. For years he had treated her like family. Now every smile, every word of care felt like a blade. Leonard thrashed, shouting, "Ethan, you'll regret this! I'll destroy you!" Ethan rose, adjusting his tie with deliberate calm. His voice was firm as stone. "Leonard, you've been trying to destroy me for 2 years. The difference is, I'm better at the game you thought you mastered." The Japanese investors watched quietly. At last, one bowed slightly to Ethan, an unspoken acknowledgement of who truly deserved respect. Amira slipped her small hand into Ethan's. In her clear eyes, he saw not just justice restored, but a new faith waiting to be nurtured. By late afternoon, sunlight streamed through the conference room windows littered with scattered papers. Police cars carried Leonard and Olivia away, their desperate threats fading into emptiness. Ethan stood at the glass, silent. What filled him was not rage, but a deep relief. For years, his trust had been exploited, his kindness dismissed as weakness. But now, he had reclaimed not only his company, but his dignity. Amira came beside him, her small hand clutching his. "You're not sad anymore, are you?" she asked softly. Ethan bent down, smiling gently. "No, Amira. For the first time in years, I feel peace. Because I know there are still people willing to do what's right even when it gains them nothing." Gabriel snapped his case shut, his voice steady. "This company will rise stronger, no longer bled dry by greed. The Japanese may hesitate today, but others will come." And indeed, within days, the news spread across the business world. Carter Dynamics had survived a massive laundering conspiracy. Companies rushed to express interest in partnership. As twilight bathed the skyline, Ethan looked at Amira, once an invisible shadow on the streets, now the key that had unlocked justice. He knew this encounter was no accident. It was destiny. 6 months after Leonard and Olivia's arrest, Carter Dynamics thrived again. From his new 20th floor office, Ethan gazed over the city, alive, brilliant like a song of rebirth. Gabriel entered with a file in hand. Latest news: Leonard got 12 years, Olivia 8. Assets seized, houses repossessed to repay damages. They won't be coming back. Ethan nodded, not with glee, but with closure. Yet the greatest gift he had received was not in numbers. Laughter rang out. Amira ran in wearing the crisp uniform of the private school Ethan had enrolled her in. She held up a report card waving a bold red A. "Mr. Ethan, I did it!" He knelt, pulling her into an embrace. "No, Amira. From now on, call me Dad." Amira froze, eyes brimming with tears. Ethan opened the folder Gabriel carried adoption papers finalized. "I lost so much because I trusted the wrong people, but because I trusted the right one, I found a family." The girl sobbed into his arms, whispering, "Grandma always said, family recognizes each other no matter how late." Ethan looked out at the city, the sun setting behind towering buildings. In his heart, vengeance no longer mattered. The true gift Betrayal had brought him was a daughter, a purpose, and the reminder that justice often comes from the most unexpected places.